Good morning and welcome back again for our second Monday in a row. I'm joined here by our DA, Dan Dow, and we're here today to inform you of an arrest in a homicide that occurred back in July, and that is the homicide of our victim here, Primativo. Before I kind of discuss the details, I was just going to recap. This is our sixth homicide of the year, which is highly unusual. We started with our first homicide of the year on January 24th, and that was the Boss case down in Oceano, followed by March the 3rd, the Carrington Brossard and her unborn baby up in the Nacimiento Lake area. Then the April 3rd of this year was Daniel Fuentes. That's the one we discussed last week, where we arrested the Gray brothers and Nathan Jara, excuse me. And then June 1st of this year, Christopher Wilson was stabbed to death up in Shandon, and that suspect's in custody. And then today marks the most recent homicide from July 7th. So a little bit of background. On July 7th, deputies received a report of a subject deceased along a roadway on Estrella Road in rural Paso Robles. When deputies arrived, they found Mr. Ortega laying face down, deceased. He had suffered numerous stab wounds, and over the course of the next 7 weeks, we began the investigation. When we located Mr. Ortega, he had no identification on him and nothing that would tell us who he was or where he lived, so that was our first challenge with the case. The detectives utilized a fingerprint system to be able to eventually identify the victim in the case, and through a series of very intense follow-up interviews and forensic analysis, we were able to determine who was responsible for killing the victim, and he was identified as a 28-year-old Fausto Ortega Maldonado here. Now, you can probably see they share a similar last name, but they're completely unrelated. So the suspect was already in custody on an unrelated charge, and on Friday evening, we added the additional charge of murder, and he was booked. The suspect in the case is a convicted felon. He has a prior felony conviction for domestic violence. This is not gang-related, and it has no connection to the last week's reported arrest in the Fuentes homicide. Well, you know what? I'll open it up to questions now. If you have any questions, yes.
Do you guys have a potential motive in this case?
We do, but we can't discuss it at this point. That would be up to the district attorney to discuss because the case has been turned over to them. Did
the suspect know the victim prior to this?
Yes.
Yeah. What is the relationship?
I think I'm limited to say that they knew each other, but no family relationship at this point.
Where did the crime occur? Did it occur where the body was found or elsewhere?
I think we have information to believe that it occurred either en route to that location or at the scene.
And how were sheriff's deputies able to identify the suspect in this case? What evidence suggests it's him?
Well, largely due to a lot of interviews. This was a very difficult case because there was an extreme language barrier. And so we had to have interpreters go with us. What we found early on was there was a lot of people that were not truthful about even information about who they were. So a lot of it had to do with the interviews, physical evidence at the scene, and electronic information.
Are both citizens of the United States?
The suspect is not. The suspect actually has, the reason why I brought up the prior conviction, that the suspect actually has a prior felony conviction that qualifies under Senate Bill 54, the sanctuary state. So we did communicate with ICE. He is wanted by ICE. He has been deported before, and the information we have at this point is he's in the country illegally.
Well, first of all, I just want to commend the sheriff's office. The sheriff and his investigative staff did amazing work. with a very, very challenging case, especially considering the multitude of homicides that we've had in the county over the last 18 months. Their work has been outstanding. In terms of what we're going to be filing today before 3 o'clock, my office is preparing a criminal complaint charging Mr. Maldonado with a 1 count of Penal Code 187 homicide. We're pleading it generically. We'll see what the evidence produces at the preliminary hearing in terms of his potential premeditation and deliberation. We're also adding a charge for an enhancement for the fact that he used a deadly weapon, to wit a knife. That's Penal Code Section 12022B. If he was convicted of first-degree murder, it would be a 25-year to life sentence plus 1 year for the enhancement. If he's convicted of a second-degree murder, it would be 15 years to life plus 1 year. So at this time, we will wait and see whether or not it develops into a first-degree or a second-degree murder. And we are asking as well that he be held without bail.